What's up, guys? Another live stream tonight. I know it's 3 of them. I've been really crunching out these live streams. I went and saw my daughter. I'm happy now. I didn't grab a Mountain Dew, but I'm trying to cut back. That's my New Year's resolution. So today's topic, though, on this video is noisy aquarium filters. Why is my aquarium filter making a lot of noise? I get this question all the time. It's real simple. If you're wondering, this tank is super cloudy. I did a deep cleansing yesterday, and when I say deep, I mean I did like a heavy gravel vac, and I moved things around. Everything was it got a deep cleansing, and it's the tank just doesn't look the greatest right now. But anyways, back to topic here. Michael Johnson says, "What's up again? Laugh out loud." Yes, we are back again, and let's talk about aquarium filters and what happens when they can be loud. Sammy said, I just subscribed to your channel like 3 minutes ago. Let me bring up the chat here. Just so I can't keep up on my channel, try to get this video straight here a little bit better. And give a couple shout outs here. Make sure I'm muted for volume. There's only 4 people watching right now. That's completely fine. Yes, 3 minutes ago. Thanks for the subscription, Sammy Rose. It's awesome to get more subscribers. Hopefully you like the channel. Isaac is in the house. He says, I have an Aquacure 110 that's like 5 years old, that's noisy. It's an old chipped impeller. Okay, first things first, when I think of a noisy filter, and what happens is I think of a filter inside of a tank, like it's just running, and the first noisy thing that usually comes to mind is, because this is sitting on the edge of your tank, is that your water level has dropped. And what will make it, this is the simplest deal ever. What happens is your water level dropped to like here because of evaporation, and that's very common. What happens is the water is falling at a farther height, and this is really simple. Lisa's Fishbowl says, yay! But yeah, it's just gonna be a lot noisier. So it's all you have to do is raise the water level. Hopefully that answers that. I find that the quietest way to have your aquarium filter to make the least amount of noise is to have the water level actually just barely touching the output here. And I'm sorry, but this filter is disgusting. That's because it got used for years and years and years, and that's what happens around here. Things get used, abused. Look at I even cut the side of it out. Like, who knows what kind of DIY thing I was into when I was cutting the side of it out. I couldn't even tell you honestly, but like I said, I screw with everything. Oh look, the other side's cut too. Anyways, so a noisy aquarium filter. What could be, number 1, I would say check your water level. Number 2, make sure that, because a filter is just a water pump essentially, and a canister and the media that filters your water. So if you can, try to get to where the water is being brought in, and it usually has what's called an impeller. This is a marine land, and on most aquarium filters, you can just take out the output, or the intake tube, I should say. This one comes right out, and it's usually disgusting. And sometimes you can get a flashlight and see on the inside, see that little hole there? You can see maybe like some pebbles of, if you use sand, this is very common if you use sand, and this is why I've grown to hate sand, but this is the impeller, and essentially you can see this spins water into the filter. And what happens is sometimes these things get wrecked by sand, or a piece of gravel gets in here. Maybe even a guppy fish swam up inside there because your filter screen, your intake screen fell off. That's happened to me. Everything you can think of has happened to me, so don't feel bad if this has happened to you. So essentially take out your impeller. I've heard that sometimes if you rinse them and put them back in, or I've also been told that some people have like put Vaseline on them. I've never done that just because I don't want it in my water. Petroleum jelly, it's what I usually do is just look online to buy one of these, or if I can't fix it, a lot of times I'll just chuck the filter. Like, it sucks to say, but sometimes when this is a $10 piece shipped to my house, I can get a brand new filter. I think this Marine Land filter is like $14 or $15, so it's like I can just get a whole new filter. So it's like, you know what I mean? So if it's not the intake, all right, I gotta find that. It fell on the floor here. Lisa's Fishbowl says DIY Chris. Yeah, actually, we've already got some comments on my last live stream about talking about the DIY building your own tanks, and it was kind of a rant video. Some people are like, oh yeah, well DIY Joey builds his own tanks, and he, if he can do it, you know, anyone can. And I'm like, did you know that I've watched everything there is on the planet with DIY Joey, and I've seen some like underground interviews that a lot of people haven't seen, and Joey has built a lot of tanks on video, yes, but he talks about the nightmares of building the tanks, and he's actually been evicted from houses, renting houses, because he flooded the whole house because building his own tank, it was a catastrophe and something went wrong. Okay, side rant done. All right, Regan Kistler says tips on creating good hiding spots. All the decent sized decorations are $50+. Sign up. Sorry, kind of off topic. Yes, this is like what grew my channel, finding hiding spots. See those black pipes in this tank? The black pipes are really cheap. I'll throw some links in the description, or else you can search black pipes and aquarium on YouTube. My video comes up. You can use the really cheap terracotta pots are really popular. See all these big pots in those tanks? And essentially what you do, they're in the plant section. Ooh, I better plug in my camera. This is gonna end quick. The terracotta pots are really cheap. They're in the gardening section. You'll pay like $10 for the massive one, but only like $1 for some of the mid-sized ones. Great hiding spots. If you don't like the look of them, you can cover them with some like black expanding foam. I have a video on that to make it look black, so it's kind of more cosmetically better looking in your tank. Or you can look up some like DIY cichlid cave deals, you know, where people glue together PVCs. It's gonna be a DIY project if you're looking for cheap caves, essentially. So essentially, okay, I gotta quit saying essentially. All right, so we talked about the number one reason why your filter is making noise is really simple. The water level's too low. You're probably having impeller issues. Make sure that something isn't clogged in the intake, because that's really common. Also, what can be noisy is if your filter pads are super disgusting and they're just like clogged up with just crap, essentially. Your filter is gonna be like, it's gonna be put on maximum like overload, essentially. And if you notice, this is a good thing to know. Most hang on the back filters have what's called an overflow, and that's where when things go wrong on the regular part of the filter, that the overflow starts to kick in. This is for like emergencies. So if your hang on the back filter is using the overflow, something is wrong with your filtration, and you need to clean your pads. I highly advise you buy some of this pad. I'll throw a link in the description box if you want some. You know, if this overflow is being utilized by the filter, it's not good. So, all right. Isaiah says, I have to go. That's cool. Lisa says, go to Home Depot and buy broken ones for like 25 cents. Yeah, and a lot of times when I buy those terracotta pots, sometimes I'll even break them. I'll buy a bunch of them, and I have a video on cutting them, but not a lot of people want to cut stone because it's really hard, it's messy. So what I do is just put on some safety glasses, hit the bottom on concrete, and the bottom kind of cracks and breaks, and then it's usually good to go. If you screw up a couple of them, they're still really cheap. Okay, Palmer Fish Aquatics. Would you run a hang on the back or a sponge filter when doing a fry grow tank? Fry grow tanks, I would never run a hang on the back filter just because they're kind of powerful. You're talking grow out tanks for fry. I would just use a sponge filter, and even a small little tiny sponge filters, and concentrate on small amounts of water changes as most frequently as you can, because that's the best for them. This is my first live stream of yours. It says Ozzy Boss. Welcome to the live stream. I guess you put some pressure on me now. How can I entertain you? Can I do a backflip? I wish I could, but I can't. I'm too old. So, what else? That pretty much should sum up why your filter's noisy. I'm just trying. I get asked this all the time, and it's like I wish I could be there. A lot of times I'll tell people to send me a video, but most of the time the water line's too low because they just haven't added to it. And I gotta say that the more filtration you have and the more air pumps and all that stuff, the more evaporation you're gonna deal with. Sometimes you get lucky enough. I have friends' tanks that I maintenance. You get lucky enough to where the water level evaporates so fast because of all the water movement that they don't have to do water changes. They just add water. It's absolutely glorious. It just kind of dries out into the air. It is what it is, but they just add water essentially. And it's, maybe they got a gravel vac once in a while, but so water level, Impeller, make sure the intake isn't clogged. Let's look at another filter. This is the Aquarium, and it's actually still wet from the tank it was in. It's absolutely disgusting, but this is a good case because this could get noisy. It's been running for a year or two. It's disgusting. The intake tube, sometimes the screen like it's clogged. You got to check that screen, make sure nothing is in the intake tube. Maybe start taking it apart. Okay, see, this one has a large impeller too. It's a lot bigger. Look inside there. Sometimes you look in there and you can't see because it's dark. Get a flashlight. It's a big deal because there's gonna be like there'll probably be like some small particulate pieces of sand in there. Something's wrong. Really rinse that off because if you're grossed out, like I'm kind of grossed out because I don't know whose tank this was. I got a bunch of free tanks. Essentially, this could be someone's tank that lived in a trailer park for like 20 years. I have no idea. I don't know if they peed in, like, I didn't know where this came from. You know what I mean? So I'm just kind of grossed out. But I could rinse it, put on some gloves if you don't like to touch it. A lot of people don't like to. I'm a savage, and I actually drank 1 cup of my aquarium water for $100, and I'm totally safe because I have faith my water is, it's not like other people's. So that was a weird thing to say. I shouldn't have said that. But anyways, check it out. Make sure, order an impeller. Some of these bigger filters, it's actually worth buying an impeller because the filter is more money, and it's the impeller is a cheaper cost, whereas some of the smaller filters aren't is costly, you know. So, and make sure your filters have good flow. Like, see, this one has the bypass, the overflows right there, and if those are being utilized and water's flowing through them, something is wrong essentially. Hopefully that wraps it up. I'm gonna hit up some Q&A. That is the end of the topical part of it. So I'm just gonna kind of hang out with some Q&A now. So, and I can't stay for very long, guys. I promised my wife I'd only do like a 20-minute live stream. God, the shrimp is just sitting here. I need to feed these to the fish more, or I gotta get them in the fridge ASAP after this live stream because I'm not gonna cut out early. How did the water taste, says Ozzy? It tasted fabulous. It tasted like spring water from Aruba. Right, Lisa? Lisa's in Aruba right now. I hate people that go on vacations and they're like posting all their social media. They're like, look where I am. I'm beautiful. This is the greatest part of the world. And you're like stuck in the snowy, blizzardy hell, essentially. How often do you recommend cleaning the hand in the back filters? I don't know what you're saying, Aquatic New York City. That's all I've been doing, says Elisa. Yes, I know, on your YouTube channel, I'm just like, swipe. No, I'm just kidding. I did watch a couple of them, but it's just picture yourself, Lisa, being that person where like you come back from a vacation and you're like, hey, someone comes up to you and they're like, hey, I have like 3,000 photos on my phone. I want to show you how my vacation went. And you're like, please tell me more. I want to kill myself. You know what I'm saying? It's just like, sometimes when I go on vacation, I'm just like, because you come back super tan, number one, and you're like, oh, this guy's all tan and he's healthy. He had a week off of work, and you're just like, end of rant. No hard feelings. Palmer Aquatics, for fry, do you feed a lot to accelerate growth? And do you let them kind of do their own thing? Yes, you should look into auto feeders. I'm going to be doing a video on some auto feeders here coming up soon. That's one of the main topics, and it's essentially auto feeders are going to be your best friend. And I've tried to get around using auto feeders because I don't like them, and I don't like relying, because I've had an auto feeder just totally just spin and spin and spin and release all the food in a tank while I was on vacation, and it killed my soul, and it almost killed all the fish. But anyways, auto feeders, get some decent ones. Look, Eheims are the best. They're a little more money, but that's for a reason. You want to feed the fish like 3 to 5 times a day, and essentially with breeding fish, the less time you have your hands on those fry, the more profit you're going to make, because you can just keep raising more fry. Auto feeders are great if you can go on vacation, level out. I used to have one like 7 years ago. Yeah, and a lot of people, fish take weeks and weeks and weeks. Like, a lot of fish will take 2-3 weeks to starve to death. So like if you're gone for 4 or 5 days, it's not a big deal. consider that a fasting, like as in Mother Nature. And a lot of people are like, don't believe in that, but I would rather have my fish starve a little bit than have something go wrong, because then you have to worry about it and you're across the world maybe on a vacation. What I do is I usually have someone I trust, like a friend, and what I'll do is I'll put like I'll get one of those pill bottles and I'll put like a tiny amount of food in there so they can't screw it up, and I'll make it simple. I'll have a tiny amount of food for every fish tank and they can't screw it up. Because if you have directions for each tank and it's like la-di-da-di, only this pinch and that pinch of food, you need to make it simple. All right, let's hit up the chat here. Have you ever had a bad experience with the velvet disease? My poor electric blue Acara in quarantine caught it. Yes, there are some things you can use for velvet. I've never really had a lot of issues with it. I've dealt with it, but look up. There's a couple different things you can use for velvet. I don't like to touch base on medications, because I've had so many problems with people coming back and being like, you shouldn't do that, you don't know it. Like, I just kind of made a rule to kind of not talk about specific things. Corey's talked about this too in his videos. Like, it gets really, you get blamed for fish dying, and it's the worst feeling in the world essentially, and I don't want any part of that. Just my advice to you, set up a quarantine tank. I'm sure you've had it. Keep the lights off. Make it as extremely less stressful as possible. Have lots of hiding places. I even like to use dark gravel. Sometimes what I'll do is I'll paint all the sides of the tank except like a small viewing paint. Like, I get weird with it. I get crazy. And because I want the fish to feel secure, like it's hiding, no lights, and hiding spots, have it be established. Like, what I'll do is I'll run like some guppies through it until a lot of times a sick fish, even an aggressive fish, a sick fish isn't going to eat guppies. So and if they're eating, they're not that sick yet. I don't know. I could do a whole live stream on this. It's just make it the least amount of stressful and treat to the correct amount of water. Cut the water down as much as you can. Like, I try to use a 20-gallon tank or a 10. It is what it is. What can I use to section off a part of my 70-gallon planted tank to remove 5 Buenos Aires tetras that are chowing down on all my plants? They're extremely fast and tough to catch. What I advise you do is get them out of there. Get some big nets. A lot of people are afraid to get big nets. They sell them. You can get nets this big and get like 3 of them. Set them up in different sections, and when you're chasing the fish with one net, the fish will go to the other side, and a lot of times even just swim right into the net because it's so large, and they're like, oh, and it's easy pickings. Get yourself a good net, get them out of there, put them in a new home. Dividers are a lot of work. I find that tetras can even get around dividers because it's really hard to get the sides sealed off really good, and tetras are really thin. I'm having issues gravel vacuuming sand. Any tips? It says Keith C. What I advise you to do is maybe look into, instead of gravel vacuuming, maybe get a polishing filter. Like this Marine Land polishing filter is kind of designed to be an internal pump or an internal filter, and it polishes your water. But what I would do is kind of set this in near the bottom. It says only like 35 bucks. You could stuff it with polyfill. You could use it as it is. And what I'm going to utilize it for is something like that. It's just essentially a polishing, and what you do with your sand substrate is kind of stir everything up to the best of your ability, maybe like once a day. Put your hand in there or some sort of tool to move it around and get everything into the water column, whereas this is going to polish it. And do that over a couple days. The next day wish it around, and or you could do that, or you could look into the Eheim battery powered gravel vac. It's kind of weak sauce if I'm being completely honest, but if you're talking big pleco poops, the Eheim electric vac isn't going to pick up big poops, but it'll pick up smaller ones. It's funny how we're talking about poop, but it's the bitter truth of it. So I get you're getting blamed for dying. Fish is the worst. I'm raising a temp, adding salt, and covering up the tank. Hope he pulls through. Yes, that is a good analysis. I give it a thumbs up. Fork Knife Gamer says, could I put an Oscar in a 55 if it's only a 10-inch Oscar? I saw your Oscar rant, but you were talking about 14-inch fish. The ones I had are 10 inches. Yeah, I mean, you can do anything. You could put them in a 40 breeder if you wanted to. I wouldn't advise it, but if it has to be short term, go ahead and do it. I have videos of keeping 2 big Oscars in a 75. I was doing water changes once every 3 days, and the fish were completely fine. But what else advice would I give? Just plan on upgrading, man. Get a big tank. Indulge into the hobby. Get a 6-foot tank. It'll make your life easier. You'll love the hobby more with a big tank, and then you're gonna go down that rabbit hole of loving big tanks because they're easy, they're beautiful, and these fish are like dogs, man. It's hard not to love them. Be right back watching my new video for the 47,000th time. Lisa, keep up the good work. Love your rant, says Blake's Aquatics. Thanks, man. Would you recommend an FX4 for a 125 gallon, says Andrew. Yeah, that would be a perfect filter. I would look also into some of, those are good filters. If you want to spend a little bit more money and just get a super trustworthy filter that's hands down one of the best, that is a good route to go. If you're looking to save a little more money, I would maybe go with they have the Cascades that are out. You can choose your sizes, the Penplex, and there's a lot of good, Marineland has some pretty good ones. Matt's Monster Fish says, and I'm back. I've been having a little bit of a problem with my jewel cichlids being over aggressive. What do you recommend in a community tank? Yeah, jewel cichlids, I have some issues too with jewels. They were in this community tank to my left for quite some time, and no issues whatsoever. And then all of a sudden, I think one of them paired off and they become overly aggressive. We're being honest here. Jewel cichlids are aggressive, pretty aggressive, small package fish. They get a lot of punch for a small fish. And I gave up and I threw mine in my African cichlid tank because they are from African waters. So it's just in their nature to be aggressive. And the pleco is on the glass of the African tank. I've been trying to catch that thing to take out of there. So hopefully he's still there after this live stream. I'm gonna net that guy. I'm getting rid of all of my common plecos. I just can't do it anymore. And this tank over here, it's really cloudy right now. I threw in my little DIY polisher. Essentially, it's a pond pump with some polyester pillow batting in there, and hopefully it'll clear it up. I did a deep cleansing. There's probably a bacteria bloom going on. What's weird though, I did a deep cleansing, but I didn't clean any of the sponge filters. So I was hoping it would, hold itself together better. But there's a lot of beneficial bacteria in the gravel essentially. So where did you get your purple rose queen from? I got that fish. I tell the story, but it was a breeding pair that I bought as a surrendered at the fish store. A lot of the fish stores local to me, they contact me with their surrenders because I like big fish, and they contact me, and I love it. And it was a surrender, so it was a breeding pair, and I lost the female. I'm still heartbroken about it. So now I just have this male of this purple rose queen cichlid. He's a stunner of a male, but I'm hoping to someday find a female, or maybe try to crossbreed him with something else. Maybe I can pollute the hybrid system. My 2 filters push 900 gallons per hour. Is that too much for a 55 gallon? I love big tanks. I just don't have enough room for one. Maybe is what you're saying. I just got this 55 2 weeks ago. Yeah, and a lot of times, when you say 900 gallons per hour, filters, a lot of the cheaper filters claim they do like 400 gallons per hour, but when you stuff the canister full of media, all of a sudden they're doing 200 gallons per hour. So it's just know that it might not be 900. It's cool that you can say that, and it's fun to boast about your systems. I do it all the time. But what was your question? How to stop splattering water sounds for a hang on the back. Dude, I just did, or actually I'm in the video right now. So yeah, this is perfect. I'm an idiot, sorry. Splashing, splattering water sounds. What you do is you raise the level of water for your hang on the back. Let me grab this as a guide. And this is really common. Raise the water level. It's gonna be really simple. Try to get the water level to where it's even with this. And if you can't do that, what I would advise you do, sometimes what I'll do is I'll cut out some of these inserts, because on some tanks, the hang on the back filter doesn't fit down far enough. It'll like just kind of like sit on the brim, and what I'll do is I'll nibble out some of these tabs to where it seats in there better, because you got to remember they're making these filters for any style of tank, you know what I mean? So they kind of just like, it's got to be the what am I trying to say, the jack of all trades for all tanks. And if that doesn't work, what I have done is I've taken out the hang on the back filter, found a piece of plastic. This is a remote to a light, but it's a good instant. You could get a little piece of acrylic, and what you could do if that doesn't work is you can screw some holes into this and then zip tie it to it, and it's going to help, because essentially what you're doing is making a ramp for the water flow. And what I've done is use a little ramp, and you can drill holes and zip tie it to the side of where the water comes out. That way the output doesn't hit the zip ties, and essentially you can make a ramp going into the tank as long as you want. And it could even be a shallow tank. A lot of people do this in turtle tanks because they're lowering the water, but they want the ramp to kind of trickle down still. Hopefully that helps. All right, guys, I'm gonna get the heck on out of here. I promised my wife I would be off by 8:45. We're gonna try to watch a movie and just hang out. But this is essentially how to fix loud aquarium filter noises. Maybe your fish tank filter is loud. Hopefully this was some help. And keeping fish. Tell all your friends. Let's grow this hobby together. Leave a comment in the comment section if you've ever dealt with loud filters. The quietest filter in your opinion is probably the AquaClear filter, because the design of it coming off the output flow is just so tremendously well built. I'm all worked up. All right, guys, that was 3 live streams tonight. I've been going hard. It's probably kind of polluting your feed essentially, but if you like hanging out, it's cool. So, all right, guys, I'm out. And if you have any questions, feel free to hit the comments. I reply to pretty much all the comments, or you can add me on Facebook. So, all right, sweetness. Whoop.